Hey, Dave from Killshot here. I am not a boat mechanic by any means, but I installed a chart plotter and transducer on my boat, and I'm posting this video in case you are thinking of doing the same thing. Basically, my choice was to take my boat somewhere and pay somebody a lot of money to do it for me, or to grab the bull by the horns and try to do it myself. After doing some research, I went ahead and took the plunge, and here's what I learned in case you are considering the same thing. So here's the story and how we ended up here. We had an old boat, Key West, that had a relatively new chart plotter in it. The boat itself had a lot of problems, and we took the plunge in buying a different boat. Not a new boat. I'm standing now in our new to us boat, which is a 92 Mako. The Mako, though, had a pretty old chart plotter installed. It worked, it was fine, it did what it was supposed to do, but we had a newer chart plotter, we had a lot of our marks in it. I wanted to transfer it over into our new to us boat. The big issue was that, well, I'll show you the big issue. So I wish I had started this video before I did the job, but it didn't occur to me to record it until I was finished. So the good news is everything worked out, all right? You don't have to be in suspense. What I'm showing to you worked. Now here is the transducer that was on the boat. Mounted right there. That's the new transducer. Of course, the problem is the old transducer was not compatible with my new chart plotter. So the job was to remove this transducer, install the new transducer, and hook it all up. Problem was that this connection point for the old transducer requires a pretty small hole. I'm guessing this is about a 3/4 inch wide connector, which meant that the hole in the hull was about 3/4 of an inch wide. That hole is right underneath this clamshell cable cover, vent cover. The connector for this new transducer would not fit through that hole. And that was my big issue. The last thing I wanted to do was to screw up the hole in my boat under the water line and cause an issue. So I started to do some research. Looked into how to widen an existing hole in your hull. I found a lot of information on putting a hole in your hull. The prevailing way to do that is with a hole saw, but you will see that hole saws include this little drill bit in the center. That keeps this centered so that the hole saw doesn't skip around and ruin your hull/gel coat. I did not want to do that. I did not want to cause a problem. And the issue I had was that there was an existing hole in my hull. So there's no material for that drill bit to hold on to when I was trying to drill a larger hole. So my other option was I could cut the cable to the transducer and splice it. I have read about people having success doing that. My transducer has 9 pins, so that's 9 different wires to cut and splice back together in a shielded cable. Now, I might have considered doing that if my transducer was old, but I just bought this transducer, so that's a whole additional element to this story. I had the chart plotter, but my transducer on my boat I was replacing was gone. That's a whole different situation. It broke off basically. So I just bought a new transducer to install. The last thing I wanted to do was cut a brand new transducer's cable and splice it back together and risk it not working properly. So I decided to take the plunge and figure out how to widen this hole. So what I landed on was using a step drill. So as you can see, these step drills step up in size the deeper you go. This one ends up at about 1 1/8 inches. I needed a 1 inch hole, so my plan was to drill and widen the outside of the hole in my hull to just before the final diameter setting of this step drill. Then I could fit the end of this hole saw into the now newly widened hole and finish the job pushing through the hull. I had to get through a pretty thick section of hull. In fact, you can see on the old transducer cable, this is about how thick the hull was at this point. So I basically step drilled in, you know, to a certain depth, and then I used the hole saw to finish the job. And that worked fine. It worked out great. So that is a tip, a trick. If you're attempting this and you already have a hole in your hull and you're trying to widen it, my advice for you is to use a step drill and then a hole saw. Once I was able to get that hole to the width I needed, the new transducer's connection fit through the hole. When you do install your new transducer, if you're going to do that, if you're doing anything related to the hull, make sure that you use silicone to seal up these holes you make. You apply them to the screws as well, so none of these holes will end up resulting in a leak in your hull. This is the silicone I used, GE waterproof silicone. Somebody I was watching on YouTube recommended this, and so far, so good. One thing I appreciated about the Mako is that it's pretty easy to get to the wiring in the center console. Just lift down the seat here, and there is your center console wiring, radio, and chart plotter over there. These wires down here come from the back of the chart plotter. So basically, I disconnected the old wires from the old chart plotter, figured out where they ran, was able to hook up the power of the new chart plotter into the same terminals on the power bus that the old one was hooked into, and that hole right there runs in a PVC pipe back here. Opening up this porthole gave me access to the end of the PVC pipe where those wires went through, and then I followed them to where they exited back here to the old transducer. So once I had that hole cut out to a point where it would accommodate the larger diameter transducer connector, I was able to feed that in from the outside. I ran a fish tape from here to the back, zip tied the transducer cable connector to the fish tape, pulled it back through. Then it was ready for me to hook it up to the back of the new chart plotter. So the chart plotter I was replacing is this GPSMap 541S. Again, this works great for what it is. It's an older unit, no touch screen. It's kind of hard to enter new numbers and names in it because you have to scroll up and down with the controls on the right side of the screen there. What I wanted to install was this Simrad unit from our old boat. The biggest issue is the form factor is significantly different. This one is more of a vertical form factor, where the Simrad is more of a horizontal form factor. And you can see I went ahead and cut out the Starboard to accommodate the new screen. There's a little gap in the bottom. At some point I'll probably put a new piece of Starboard in here to make it look a little cleaner. But for now, I just wanted to make sure everything would work. It's going to go in the water here in a little bit to test to make sure that that transducer is hooked up and working correctly and oriented properly. Just as a little tip, Starboard cuts just like plywood. You can use a jigsaw, a router, a circular saw, whatever. I used a jigsaw here, cut it out just fine. And you can see we are working just the way we're supposed to. So, loving it. Let's get this thing in the water, make sure that it's working the way it's supposed to. And let me encourage you, if you are considering this project and you're trying to work out whether it's worth paying somebody to do it or doing it yourself, I'm here to tell you it wasn't that bad. The part that I was most anxious about was trying to deal with widening the existing hole in the hull, and using that method I showed you with the step drill and hole saw worked like a dream. Now, you might be a little more nervous if your hull is newer than a 92, so you want to pay somebody to do it. At least you have some more information to help you make that decision. Good luck. All right, time to drop the boat in and see if my transducer and chart plotter install was successful. All right, she's unloaded. Let's get the trailer parked. Gotta love hitting the boat ramp during the week. Plenty of parking. Let's see if this project is a success. Okay, moment of truth. Let's see how this puppy works. Testing it out here right at the inlet where I know there's some bottom to see. That will tell me if the chart plotter and transducer are installed and set up correctly. Alright, we're seeing some information here. Marking some fish. Good. Oh yeah, there we go. Some structure. Very nice. Let's get that a little bigger here. Nice. Alright, let's try something a little deeper. Path I'm on should take me right over some structure. Let's see. Come on, baby. Make me proud. Oh, marking fish. Oh yeah, there's structure. I gotta adjust this to be a little more useful at these greater depths, but wow, that is awesome. Nice and slow. Let's see what we have. I adjusted this. See if I can make it a little more useful. Yeah, you can see the structure we're going over. It's a wreck. Here's the back end of it there. There it is here. And I am stoked. We're working. Well, there you have it. I am really stoked. I'm excited. Everything is working as expected, as it's supposed to. So I guess that's the final proof that if you are worried about taking the plunge and tackling a project like this yourself, if I can do it, you probably can too. Good luck.